I don't want to be strong like man who look pretty. I want to be strong like bitch that fight bears in the forest.
Welcome to another episode of Bitch vs. Bear with your hosts, me, Amber, my bestie, Sydney.
Woohoo!
We are co-owners of Shield Maiden Training Co., and this is a show where we bitch, laugh, and chat about all things fitness and wellness related to women and the LGBTQIA plus community.
I felt like you were starting to read the alphabet.
It's a lot of damn letters.
E.
There's so many.
This was great. I really loved it.
Well, good.
All right.
All right, what do we got this week, Sid?
This week, we've all heard the saying, like, no pain, no gain.
Ugh.
Or, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Nah. Hate it.
Okay, but really, do any of these sayings, like, have any truth to them? Or are they just merely cliches? I think we're going to delve into the psychology of adversity and resilience.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what this episode is about. Really building our resilience to adverse situations and environments and all that lovely jazz.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So, Amber,
Yes.
where does adversity come from?
So adversity comes in many forms, like physical, emotional, and mental challenges that test our limits and push us out of our comfort zones. Whether it's overcoming obstacles in pursuit of a goal or dealing with unexpected setbacks, adversity is an inevitable part of life. That's unfortunate. But does enduring hardship really lead to growth and strength? Researchers in psychology have long been fascinated by the concept of resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity stronger than before. Studies have shown that individuals who face and overcome challenges often experience psychological growth, known as post-traumatic growth. Rude. But what factors contribute to resilience, and how can we cultivate it in ourselves?
I think that's a very good question, and I am proud of myself for writing it.
It is a good question. Are you going to answer that question later, Sydney?
I think it's up to interpretation. So everybody, I think you can cultivate resilience in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very dependent on a lot of reflection on what you need for yourself to build that resilience.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think I was young enough when I started building resilience that I didn't do a lot of reflection, but it was coming from a lot of different sides. So, as many of you know, I was an Outward Bound instructor for a long time. Still technically am. So, Outward Bound, there's a vision in Outward Bound, and that is to have more resilient and compassionate individuals.
Yeah.
And a more resilient and compassionate world. And we do this through challenge and discovery. So whether that's natural challenges that arise on the expedition, or whether they're a little tailor-made, because there isn't quite enough challenge being provided by the elements.
People are not growing and being challenged enough.
Well, sometimes you have like bluebird days and you're like, okay, we've been out here for a while and it's 70 and sunny and
The weather's been perfect. There's
the
no
weather-
bugs. There's
yeah.
no rain.
There's none of that, which like those environmental challenges can be huge challenges, but you do have those courses where you're like, nothing has gone wrong. There's been no lick of rain. Like everything is just run to the T and you're like, okay, I got to come up with something. I got to make sure that they have a hurdle put in front of them.
Fair.
And so I think because of being in that environment, I started to build this resiliency pretty early on because it was just the fabric of what I was doing in my professional life.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the ways that I think I did it and have really cultivated is it's allowed me to be really flexible. And by that, I don't mean like physically flexible because we know that's not true. It's being more open to like change and willing to adapt my plans when necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And so that flexibility allows me to just adjust to unexpected circumstances and find alternative paths forward. And through Outward Bound, being able to have a positive outlook, because I was having to be a role model in my position.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
so I really had to demonstrate what I wanted them to see. So I really, really what this was, I faked it till I made it.
There you go.
Like, I wouldn't say that I went in with a ton of resiliency and all of these like great coping skills and like all of the things, but I just knew that I had to role model it enough. And so then it just became ingrained in what I was doing and who I presented to the world. And so now I'm just like, oh, I'm a pretty resilient human.
Right. Makes sense.
Because I just did it for, 8 years.
God, it just had to be.
I just kind of had to be.
Yes.
So, and because of Outward Bound, there was a lot of time spent in reflection. Like we pushed that on students because we understood that that's where a lot of growth came. We like to call it the dunk 'em and dry 'em method, right? So like you put them up against a challenge and a hurdle, dunk them, and then you have some space in between that event, dry them, and then you think about it and they can take away. And so like, because we were doing that kind of on repeat, it was just part of my life. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I got to be in a position where I got to do a lot of reflection. It's great. If you can't, this episode isn't about Outward Bound, but it was the thing that helped me build resiliency.
Yeah.
Because
that's kind of its jam.
It's kind of its jam. And I had to undergo everything the students were going through. I was going through too, plus tenfold, because it was my job. So
because you also had to take care of all of them.
I had to take care of people's most prized possessions in an environment that was challenging. And at times perceived to be life-threatening. Like, there isn't much you can do when you're sitting in the middle of the ocean in a lightning storm. You're like, okay, my blood pressure's rising. So I think that was how I built resiliency. I would say that at least laid the good foundation for it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So what about you, Amber? Because I would, if somebody was like, hey, describe Amber, and I would be like, okay, she's funny, she's loyal, and she's resilient. Like, you would be like, it's just one of those things. But like, did you set out to build it? Or is it just like, or did it just happen?
Life thrusted upon me.
Yeah. The sink or swim.
Yes. The dunk 'em without the drying 'em.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, this was interesting I love when you put story times into our episode scripts, because I have to do some reflection, and it's difficult and I don't like it. But here we are. And you told me that my first resiliency take was not appropriate. So,
well,
okay. So I think my building of resiliency was not as purposeful in any way, shape, or form. It just kind of happened through life events. Early on in my early 20s, I guess it was my mid to late 20s by that time. I ended up switching my kind of career track, the path that I was on, from classroom education, which is what I've been working towards for 10 years to get my degree, and then got it and was like, oh, wait, I don't actually want to do this. And instead of taking what would have admittedly been the easier path and just doing it anyways, I switched and went in a different direction and ended up at Outward Bound, which is where I took an Outward Bound course, not as an instructor, but as the student who had those challenges thrust upon me. And I think that really helped. It was an incredibly challenging thing to do, and it was so far outside my comfort zone. It was not something I ever wanted to do or would likely do again.
One and done.
But it was a good opportunity. It was a big growth opportunity for me. And And so I think that did help to continue building that resiliency. Just doing other weird things like deciding to move to new locations, totally unknown, a month before the move date and being like, yeah, okay, I'm just going to uproot my life and move to this new place where I don't really know anybody.
You've done that on more than one occasion.
I've done that on several occasions.
That's your MO.
That is my MO. That's my go-to. I'm bored. Let's move.
I'm bored. Let's move.
Yeah, I've, tried new sports and activities. Took up dodgeball and volleyball for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Trying CrossFit, which I don't care what anyone says, it's definitely a cult. Getting into climbing. A few years ago during the pandemic, deciding to get my yoga teaching license.
Yeah.
And now actually teaching yoga classes, which was a really wild and fearful thing that I decided to do. Yeah. So I guess, I don't know, things just kind of happen and end up building resilience.
I think that happens to people a lot. I don't know that a lot of people understand how much resilience they've actually built until they have that reflection piece of like, oh, yeah, I moved across the country for, a job that I didn't know anybody, or like, so like it comes from that reflection piece.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is like building resilience is this ongoing process.
Yeah.
And it takes time and effort and practice, whether we know we're practicing or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the key, I think, to resilience is to start young, like most things. Like you're better when you have a lot of time to practice and
more ramp up time.
Yeah, more ramp up time. And that's why researchers and people in early childhood education believe things like fitness, organized sports, summer camps are great activities for kids to start working on the skill set of resilience.
Yes.
Because it's multifactorial.
Right.
But as adults,
it's a little harder.
And sometimes we overlook the fact that we need to practivate and cultivate those skills too. Because we're adults and we think we know everything.
What? I don't understand.
Yeah.
I know nothing.
Exactly. I know nothing. You know nothing, Jon Snow. True. Oh. Okay. So, if you're not familiar with the 3 Ps, these are a simplified way to think of and build resilience.
Okay. I was not familiar with these.
Yeah, these are like when you do those like team building and like those kinds of, like they're talked about in that setting. So if like you're a corporate person and you've been you've been in that world, these might sound familiar to you.
Okay. All right. So first we have power. Power in the context of resilience refers to the ability to take control of your emotions and reactions in the face of adversity. It's about recognizing that you have the power to choose how you respond to difficult situations. This means acknowledging your emotions, but not letting them dictate your actions. This sounds familiar. I feel like we've talked about this before.
Probably.
By taking control of your emotional responses, you can make more rational and constructive decisions even when faced with adversity. I feel like this goes back to last week's episode when we were talking about fear.
Huh. It's almost like I tied these things in together.
That fear response makes you irrational and destructive.
Exactly.
Okay, so to build, too far. To build this power, mindfulness practices like meditation and deep breathing can be invaluable. These techniques help you become more aware of your emotions and provide you with the space to choose your responses consciously instead of letting them just happen.
Yeah.
Additionally, fostering a growth mindset. That does sound a little woo-woo. The belief that you can learn and grow from challenges can empower you to face difficulties with a sense of personal agency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The following episodes are a little woo-woo. I will admit to that.
It's okay. We can be a little woo-woo sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
I am from Vermont.
So our rugby team saying was, I'm from Vermont, I do what I want. And you really embody that. just thought I'd throw that out there.
Thank you.
So the next P in our 3 Ps is perspective.
Oh.
Perspective is all about how you view and interpret challenging situations. Resilient individuals tend to adopt a more optimistic perspective, seeing adversity as an opportunity for growth rather than a roadblock or a setback.
Mm-hmm.
It's the ability to reframe setbacks as learning experiences and find that, silver lining through tough times.
Okay, yeah. Makes sense.
So, to enhance your perspective, focus on gratitude and positive self-talk.
That also sounds familiar.
So we used to do, throwing it back to Outward Bound, we used to do teaching how to do gratitudes, how to say and receive them, because it's not something we do enough of. And I think it can be really hard for some people to receive gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one of those things that if you don't practice it and you don't do it with your self or your family, it can be really hard later in life.
Yeah.
To learn to be mindful in that way and be like, okay, I'm really grateful for this today, even if it was maybe not something that in the moment you thought you would be grateful for.
Fair. Yeah.
And we talk a lot about positive self-talk on the podcast. So,
that we do.
yeah. As they say, count your blessings and remind yourself of past successes and how you overcame difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
This helps you maintain a more optimistic outlook. I'm a very optimistic person.
Mm-hmm. You are.
Even when you're facing adversity. So seeking the support of a mentor or a counselor or even journaling can help you practice these things. You can start a gratitude journal where it's simply just one thing you're grateful for that day or one person. And, you could even do it at dinner of just speaking those things out loud. I'm grateful. I have a lot of gratitude for. Getting into the habit of practicing that can be really helpful.
Love that.
Of course, mentors, counselors, they're valuable. We know that. We can't speak to that enough. Because they provide a different perspective, right? They show you a different angle to view a situation from. Because sometimes we have a hard time with that ourselves as individuals. We'll look at something very straight on and be like, well, this. And then somebody else can be like, well, have you thought of or considered?
Look at it this way.
Look at it this way.
All right. Our final P of resilience is perseverance. Perseverance is the third pillar of resilience, and it entails the ability to keep going despite obstacles and setbacks. Resilient people are not easily discouraged by failures, but rather they use these failures as stepping stones toward their goals. They have a strong sense of determination and grit, which allows them to push through adversity. To cultivate perseverance, set clear goals and break them down into manageable steps. I feel like this is great for anybody in any regard.
Yeah.
We've talked about goals before. When you encounter setbacks, try to view them as opportunities to learn and adjust your approach. That alternative perspective.
Yep.
Yeah. Surround yourself with a supportive network of friends and family who can encourage you to keep going when the going gets tough.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That network. Community, if you will.
Community. So, really, what we're saying is, unfortunately, they're not just cliches. There is some truth to no pain, no gain. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. These things do set us up for growth and for building resiliency and overcoming adversity, which I think anybody who is listening to the podcast should work on. But specifically, those of us who are in minorities, we face more adversity on a daily basis than a lot of people. So let's use it to our advantage.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Don't just view it as well, I'm always being shit on, which is true.
I mean, yes, but
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So keeping that in mind, use it to our advantage. Let's use these things to help us get a leg up.
Yeah. Turn that shit into fertilizer.
Exactly. Lemons into limoncello.
I had the best limoncello at Busch Gardens last weekend.
Amber is a big fan of Busch Gardens now, everyone. Just in case.
I'm real excited for
the
Food and Wine Festival.
Throwing it back to last week's episode, Fearless, go on roller coasters.
No.
For those of you who are scared, not nauseous.
I did well. You all went on your roller coaster. I took my lonely little ass and wandered around the park. I made new friends at the wine bar.
That is true. You did.
That is outside my comfort zone.
That is true. Not what I was going for, but great.
If you have motion sickness and are unable to ride the roller coasters,
yes,
try the wine bar.
Try the wine bar. But if you're just nervous and scared,
do it anyways.
Do it anyways. It'll help you build resiliency and help you overcome fear. So whether you're lifting weights or lifting each other up, let's keep breaking barriers, building strength, and embracing our rainbow of resilience.
Woohoo!
Until next time, stay fierce and stay fabulous.